Hello, people of the internet. So, I got the Dodge out, taking the wheels off, and I thought I'd do a quick video on wheel spacers. I know there's a lot of people out there that think wheel spacers are the devil. They're the worst thing to be invented since the popularity of hot air intakes. But they really aren't. You just have to be, knowledgeable about what you have on the vehicle, what you have for a wheel, and how you're going to make those two things work with the wheel spacer. Wheel spacers are functional. If you own a dually truck, there's, especially more modern ones, there's a good chance that your front dually spacer, the front hub adapter piece, is essentially nothing more than a wheel spacer. It bolts onto the hub, and then your wheel bolts onto it. But you do need to understand that it is definitely a product where it's a buy once, cry once. Buy the best quality that you can get. That does make a huge difference. Most notably in wheel spacers, from my 20-30 years of experience, the chunk of metal that actually is going to space your wheel from your hub generally isn't the failure point. It's the low quality wheel studs they put in. I actually have a couple of inexpensive ones that I've collected over the years, gotten good deals on them, and they have cheap studs in them, and you cannot torque those studs to spec. You can feel them stretching when you start trying to torque them to spec. And when you do that, it'll fatigue the metal. The wheel stud's junk, the wheel stud's gonna break. Now that's true of anything, even if you're not running wheel spacers. You buy a cheap hub assembly and it's got wheel studs in it, and they put cheap ass wheel studs in it, that's gonna be a failure point. Anyway, back to wheel spacers. You need to know if you are hub centric or if you are lug centric. And if you're hub centric, you need to make sure that you have the right diameter collar to fit so that the wheel spacer doesn't want to move on you. You can get wheel spacers in a variety of types. You can get them that are adapters, so they will take you from lug centric to hub centric to lug centric. They will take you from bolt pattern A to bolt pattern B. Like 5 by 108 to 5 by 114. I'm sure you 4-lug guys have stuff in more common stuff. 5 on 5.5 to 5 on 5, and vice versa. 5 on 4.5 to 5 on 4 3/4, and vice versa. So you need to know what you need and what you have. And you also want to make sure that you are getting the right thickness. After that, when it comes time to actually put the wheel spacer onto the hub assembly, now you haven't gotten your wheel on yet, you put your spacer on. As long as you have the correct type of spacer on that side of the flange, because you think of it as double flanged, as long as you have the correct unit, if that side of the flange is hub centric, you have a hub centric inner spacer. If that side of the flange is lug centric, it's lug centric inner spacer. What I do, and we used to do this on race cars, and I've known a lot of people over the years to do this, so this is anecdotal. If you hear a small cat, we have a feral cat that's decided to adopt at the garage, so sorry for the cat crying. We're not abusing it. It's just making noise. Anyway. So when you go to put the wheel spacer on, what I do is I put a layer of anti-seize. Doesn't have to be thick and heavy, but I put some anti-seize between the spacer and the hub. That way they don't seize up to each other. I use high strength Loctite on the lug nuts and studs. Well, I put it on the stud and use use it to hold the lug nuts on. And I torque the lug nuts that hold the spacer to spec. Always do this. Years ago, I worked in a shop where, like my dually analogy from earlier came up. Guy had to replace wheel hubs on an F550, big box truck, 2-wheel drive, and guy gets the user, the operator gets the truck back out of the shop and has it for a couple of days, and the wheel falls off, goes down the road. Came back to the mechanic, and they asked him, "Did you torque the adapter, the dually adapter, to the hub?" He said, "I couldn't find a torque spec for it." It is the 9 times out of 10. I'm sure there are manufacturers that don't. That torque spec is the same as your wheels. Your wheels torque at 95 foot-pounds. If your wheels torque at 195 foot-pounds, the wheel spacer torques to the wheel torque. Okay? So a little bit of anti-seize between the hub and the spacer. Red Loctite on the threads that retain the spacer, not the wheel, the spacer. Torque the spacer to spec. Then the spacer lugs, you get a little bit of anti-seize, you get your wheel on them, again making sure that that side of the adapter flange has the appropriate mating style for the wheel, hub centric or lug centric. Torque the wheel to spec. I know everybody gets out there with the Ugga Dugga machine and just runs it in. Torque the wheel to spec. 9 times out of 10, guys that do that, very, very few and far between problems unless you get bad wheel studs or you have extremely worn components. If you have bad wheel studs, worn components, you just got to replace them. You got to update them. I mentioned earlier that I do have some cheap wheel spacers that I picked up over the years for next to nothing because the lugs wouldn't torque. Honestly, even in the 8-lug versions that I've got, you go spend $1.50 a piece on quality wheel studs, and I'm less into those wheel spacers than I would be if I bought them new. You just got to knock a wheel stud out, match up the knurling, match up the length, match up the thread style, and you're good to go. Because generally speaking, the chunk of metal that makes the spacer, unless someone has abused it in some way, shape, form, or fashion, the chunk of metal doesn't fail. It either is the wrong type of spacer to the mounting flange, or the studs break, or you didn't torque anything to spec and the shit rattled apart. It's just the way it is. So don't be afraid to use wheel spacers, but when you do use wheel spacers, do it appropriately, do it sensibly, and take the necessary precautions. It's the first thing that contacts the road when you're going down it. The cheaper you go, the more trouble you're probably going to be in. Now, if you got something that never hits the road, screw it. Use whatever you feel like. You're probably only going to hurt yourself, maybe a passenger. As long as the passenger's not a kid, you're grown adults. You're going to do what you're going to do. So, hopefully that helps some people with wheel spacers, at least on how to use it and whatnot. And as far as lug centric and hub centric go, you can look that information up. It's easy to find on the internet. It's not a difficult thing. So don't be afraid of wheel spacers. Just do the job properly. Do it right the first time, and you won't regret. So everybody get out, have fun, go do something you like.